So we have the motion on the floor to accept the RCMP financial plan in principle, and that's in the motion. Is there any other discussion? I will call the vote then. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we have item 7.4, the Memorial Park pedestrian connectivity. I've certainly been eagerly waiting to hear about. So, Ethan, does your administrative team have anything to add to this or talk about?
Sure, I'll defer to Craig if there's anything he wants to preface this item with.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. So this one is from a 2020 capital project. And we went to Alberta Transportation to ask them a bunch of questions about that might help. Ask them a bunch of questions about the intersection and whether or not solar crossing signals would be an appropriate style of crossing section there. They came back with some recommendations that maybe we don't do that in order to save the pedestrian assumption of safety and all those sort of concerns that they had raised at the time. And then, so because of that, the project didn't move forward in any sort of fashion. There was no real direction given. So we did talk a couple of times about maybe getting a pedestrian study there, or maybe some sort of intersection assessment done. So I think we're kind of maybe looking to seek some guidance on that, and whether or not council has any appetite with moving forward with a study to come up with some suggestions on how to resolve sort of the overall function of that intersection for pedestrians, and then we can have some good decision-making processes. So that's what we're here to ask for tonight.
All right, can we just ask the questions of Craig, Ethan? Would that be satisfactory?
Sure, absolutely, Mayor.
All right, other questions? Councillor Crothers.
I guess I'm looking for Craig. What information are you looking for? My reason for asking is when Reimer Plaza was set up, Alberta Transportation spent quite a bit of time doing traffic flow and pedestrian flow analysis. We're talking about 6 or 7 years ago, but they had vehicles there for, gosh, almost 2 weeks and had a very detailed study. Is that information available to us, or is it no, it's aged or not any good anymore?
So interestingly enough, we are in discussions about that intersection as a whole with respect to some other movements in the neighborhood. And so we are being mindful of some of the past information that was discussed and thought about back when some of the developments occurred in that neck of the woods. It doesn't look like any of that data was done for the town or by the town. Alberta Transportation hasn't come forward with anything. They do regular and routine collection of traffic count data on various segments of the highway, and they post that online, and that's used by traffic engineers province-wide to be able to do the synchro analysis, to do the traffic impact assessments that are mandatory for roadside development permits. So that might have been a function of that. That might have been serendipitous that it was at the time of development. I don't know if it was locked to the development decisions there or not.
Excuse me, it was required by the builders to provide that to Alberta Transportation, so they had to pay for that study. So the people that built Reimer, they're the ones that hired the guys doing the timing.
This is what you have, Craig, when we have longtime realtors on our council.
And I appreciate that very much. No, and that's good information. I appreciate that. I will follow up on that suggestion. Conversations as late as early as yesterday didn't indicate there was any data out there. So that's whether or not it's specifically for pedestrians is the other factor there. I don't anticipate that information was gathered specifically to determine pedestrian safety for crossing at that intersection. It's probably more of a broader traffic impact assessment to see whether the turns in and out for the vehicles
I would suggest that you're correct, because the fellow that was James Carpenter, that was kind of doing it, he was telling everybody, oh yeah, this is the amount of traffic we get every day. And again, this was part of the marketing plan for the plaza.
Yeah, and like I mentioned, thank you for that. I will follow up on that for sure.
Okay. Thanks, Craig. Councillor Crothers. Councillor Windsor has a question.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. My question, I got kind of two questions here, Craig. One of them is Alberta Transportation asking for this focus study?
No, this has sort of been more of a municipal focus, this intersection with the pedestrian crossing specifically. So it's not really on Alberta Transportation's radar from a pedestrian's perspective. They are really focused on the traffic impact sides of things with all of our intersections at the moment. But the pedestrian specific focus is more of our own internal looking out for the best interests, I think.
Okay, so the second part of that question is, if we go ahead with this focus study, is it going to impact Alberta Transportation's decision as to whether we do this or not, or whatever fashion we do it in? Is it going to have an impact?
What I would say to that is it gives us the information that we need to have in order to have a fruitful conversation. So we kind of proposed, just out of, I guess, my looking at other options around town for the solar lights, we proposed that to them and they weren't overly receptive. I think at this point in time, if we went back to them and asked them for something different, they might start to wonder, well, what's your overall objectives for the intersection? So I think a study like this would take into consideration sight lines, distances, speeds, traffic counts, pedestrian movements, obviously, and then come up with I don't know what the solutions might be. It might be additional lighting. It might be the solar crossings with additional lighting. I don't specifically know the answer, because I guess that's why we're looking for some experts to come to the table. So
is it a flat out no that we can't put a crossing there, Craig?
Interestingly enough, no. Alberta Transportation said they wouldn't object vehemently to the request. We'd have to go through the roadside development permit, similar to what we've done at 23rd and 582, and so we're expecting that to move forward relatively quickly. But this one here would be sort of a similar process. We'd sort of spot them out. They'd probably come back with a different type of light that they might want. They might ask us to do a traffic impact assessment just because they would want updated information too. So depends on how they receive the roadside development permit that we would put together, is sort of how they would frame their response. It's kind of difficult to say whether they would say yeah with all of these caveats. It's hard to say how they sort of approach it.
And is this in our budget right now? Or would you add this to our budget?
If I could defer the financial request to Amanda, I think I know, but I don't want to step on something.
Ethan, Amanda?
Yeah, I'll defer to Amanda.
So what Craig's analyzed his professional fees operating budget and has determined that there's room within that to conduct this study.
Okay, Councillor Moore?
Yes, I don't know if we have any friends in the traffic department of Alberta Transportation, but I know that they have a real concern with keeping traffic moving on a highway. And we have talked at times about another crossing at 20th Street. And if we're talking, certainly we need a sizable one, and we're planning to have one at 23rd Street. But I'm just concerned that maybe there are people that they have standards that they would say that, you know, you can only stop at this much, or that there are speed limits that you'd have to have first, and what the effect on traffic on 582, which is a real corridor for trade and for traffic. I do think that a crossing there would be good, but I just wonder if we maybe need to look at a longer term and sort of global approach to this in conjunction with Alberta Transportation, so that we can definitely say, well, we might get these two, but we need to forget about a couple of these because we can't stop them every few blocks on a highway. I'm just looking for that overall hope that you might find somebody at Alberta Transportation that can give us the big picture so that what we do can fit into that.
I'd like to suggest that we proceed with the development permit application and what their answer and work is. And we know how busy that intersection is, and we get comments about it all the time. So now that we've opened the discussion and we have the money set aside for pedestrian crosswalk and the work that goes with it, could we, the motion be to proceed with the development permit application, and then that discussion will be a bigger one with Craig once that development permit application is in. Is that fair to say, Craig, that once you do that, there'd be more conversation going on than just hypothetical?
It's an interesting approach. I don't, so I guess my biggest concern really is that on 23rd, we do know that we're sort of imminent with an intersection upgrade, and then there'll be some improvements made, and pedestrian safety will improve through that improvement. With this one, so I kind of look at 23rd, what we've done there is sort of temporary. And then so for this one, I guess I would ask if that's the way we wanted to proceed, is it still sort of understood that there will be a development trigger somewhere down the line that will see an intersection improvement on 16th as well? So we can go forward with something very similar in a temporary fashion, knowing that we're gonna in the future do a removal, and there's nothing saying we can't repurpose these instruments somewhere else in town, but it would be that sort of understanding that we would be looking at something in the future at some point, and more than likely development driven at that point.
Councillor Crothers, you had a comment?
Just to give Craig some information, Burt Brown and Associates were the main contractor on the plaza, and they were the ones that hired the guys in the car and to do all that kind of stuff. So that might be a source of information for you.
Okay. So I still don't know how I should vote because I don't see any hope. Okay. Can you give me some hope, or give council some hope here on this?
Well, with Alberta Transportation, all you get to do is ask. We can go forward with the request to do something very similar to 23rd Street. My anticipation is we're going to face the very difficult conversations that we've had to have at that intersection as well when we come looking for a permit. So we kind of, same thing as any roadside development permit. So we are developing something. So technically, if we do trigger that opportunity for Alberta Transportation to say, yeah, we'll give you your permit on the condition that you create a transportation impact assessment for the intersection. So we get that. I think that we can definitely go forward and ask this question. There's no issues with that.
So why don't we make them say that to us then? and then we have to vote. Right. That would be my preference, and I know it would delay, but I think to get all the answers in the order we need them, I would be comfortable that we start the conversation. If that's what they expect, then I think it would be easier to we didn't have to do that for the 23rd Street corner. So we just need to get people across safely. And if they're not saying outright no, I would vote that we start at that. And then if someone would make that motion, or does someone want to make the motion for the $7,500? Because I know the way I'll vote based on Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I tend to agree. I think that, Craig, you said it. All you can do is ask, and then they'll direct you how they want you to do it. So I will suggest that I will move that council direct administration to proceed with a development permit for a crosswalk at the 16th Street and 582.
For the development permit application, is that?
Yeah, sorry, yes, a development permit application.
All right, Craig?
I'm trying my hand at this friendly suggestion. There's a crosswalk already there. So what we'd be asking for is the solar crossing signals installation at the crosswalk. I think at the scope of work, we would also include we would refresh the paint obviously at the crosswalk at the same time, but the roadside development permit would be for, I guess, the refreshing of the paint at that point as well. We might as well just come clean.
Okay, so I'm willing to amend my motion to say what Craig said.
Okay. And then can Luana read that back?
Yes, moved by Deputy Windsor that council proceed with a development permit application with Alberta Transportation for the installation of a solar crossing signals at the crosswalk at 16th Street and Highway 582.
That is impressive. Thank you. Okay. I will call the vote then, unless there's any other questions. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. And now we have our exciting MSP project, awarding 20th Street Stormwater and Surface Revitalization Project. Again, we can start with a conversation on this because I think there will be questions, or someone can make the motion. Councillor Moore has her hand up.
Yes, I'll make the motion, and we can always have a conversation after that if necessary. So I move that council award the 20th Water and Surface Revitalization Project for a total of $454,891.03 to KOM Construction.
All right, thank you. Other questions? Is your hands up, still up? Okay, Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I have two questions. The first one is I'd kind of like to know where these contractors are from, because I really think that we should be leaning towards employing our local bidders or local contractors. And so I'd like to know where KON is from and professional excavators. And then secondly, I'd like to know where the balance of the MSP grant is being allocated to, and are we returning that money, or is it covering other expenses associated with this project? Is it the light standards that we're going to upgrade in that end of the street? I'd like just an indication of what the balance of the MSP is going toward.
Ethan?
I'll defer to Amanda on that.
Actually, I'm not sure where. I know Keon, Craig could speak to the location of that contractor the best. And then I'll answer the second question first. Okay, so yes, you're absolutely right that this grant is not like other grants where we can just kind of put the money that's not spent back in the pot. So we will want to spend it associated with that project. And what I would suggest is one of two things. Either having administration come up with kind of some ways to like enhance the project in terms of like, say, trees or furnishings, or maybe extending the milling a bit, and things that still are within kind of the scope of what's been applied for. But we'd have to bring examples of that back to council. And then, or the other option is to allocate it to the street lights, the purchase of the street lights, and then free up the money that was going to go to the street lights, and that's GTF money, which would go back into the
Roads.
into the pot. But either way, we don't want to return it. We want to spend all of the MSP, and then consider our options.
Thank you, Amanda.
And thank you for the question about contractors and their local presence. So we received the 6 bids, and Kaon is an Olds-based general contractor, a dirt works contractor, and we, in our RF request for tenders, we use a scoring matrix in there in order to reward contractors who have local presence, maybe not so much local experience, and then being able to tie personnel within the organization to local experience, as well as subcontractors. So contractors outside the municipality aren't necessarily excluded through this mechanism, and in an open and public tender, that's not the point. So what this does is it encourages contractors from outside the municipality in some situations, if they don't self-execute, to look for local talent to bring to the table. So in this case, Kaon came with Rubydale, Tanis, and Westcan as their trifecta for doing the asphalt, milling, and concrete works. So that's sort of the way the technical scores were all executed by ISL, and there's a real big statistical assessment done both on pricing and the technical scores, which were part of the local content and things like that. So then Professional Excavators, they were the contractor who did our 20th Street works in 2018, I think. So they also scored very highly in the technical components, but as you can see that they weren't the lowest bidder. And then we had Ruby Rock came in with Kaon as their dirt work operator. So Rubydale was going to be the general in their package, and they came in just a little bit higher than Professional Excavators. So going through the assessments, the technical evaluations, the safety, the tying people to projects and all that sort of stuff that we look at, the same sort of construction group in number 1 and number 3 were available. And in this case, because low bidder gets to rule, then that's sort of the consortium we end up with.
Councillor Engel?
Thank you, Craig.
I'm sorry, could you tell me again? So I just want to understand correctly. So Kaon is going to sub some of this work out to the local contractors, who they were again?
Yeah. So the way the group works is Kaon will be the general contractor, and their subs that they listed in their tender were the Ruby Rock, Tanis, and Westcan.
Okay. Ethan, I'm going to ask you that you say anything that comes to the table that isn't local, and local to me, I guess, is Disbury, but I understand the tender process and whatnot. So what's your thought? That obviously came to you first, and you and Craig talked that.
Yeah, we reviewed it. So there is the local component. So as you can see, they have a strong local experience component and local component because of all their subs. So that was part of what scored them well on that, even though the company themselves, all their subs are all their subs are local, so that helped in their favor. So they were strategic in their pricing, and they're using all local subs, so that really helped in their favor.
And can you jump to number 3 in these situations? You have a criteria scale, and we used to get those in our packages, and we don't have one here. In the past 2 projects that we discussed, we had the total breakdown of how evaluated scores and whatnot. So obviously it's funding, and that we always try to get the best opportunity for funding, and there is the Northwest Trade Agreement. So can you jump to the number 3?
Well, council always has discretion to approve whatever. That's why it's brought to council. They have discretion in choosing what they would like to do. If council's wanting, what I would recommend is that if council's not wanting to go with the recommended one, that it at this point be accepted as information, and we'll bring back some more information on that. So I think at this point, depending on how much interest from council there is to either go or not go with the recommended choice, I think on that, and there are some aspects of this that are legal issues, so we need to go in close to discuss further. But I do recommend that if you don't want to go with the recommended choice, then we bring back some additional information.
Yeah, I'm certainly not suggesting that. They're just questions, and I know that Craig does his homework, and he always does an excellent job. So that wasn't the intent. I do like the local component Keon does bring, but I do remember a project on 23rd Street that used local subcontractors, and then it was delayed and that was just a weather thing. But are there any other comments? Councillor Ingle has his hand up again.
Yeah, maybe Craig, if you could, just in case anyone doesn't understand, and I don't think I'm misunderstanding, but I believe that if Keon is just acting as the general or the construction manager, the bulk of the work is going to be done by all of the companies that are already located in Didsbury. Is that not correct?
So with Keon, they are the dirt work people. So they will be the ones installing the pipe in the ground and doing the dirt compaction and reinstating the sub base. And then from what I understand, Ruby Rock will be taking it from the subs up to prep for asphalt levels. Westcan will do the milling, and then Rubydale would do the full overlay over the entire area at one time. So the dirt work component is what Keon is bringing to the table out of the 4. We can get into some pricing conversations. It gets a little dicey for continuity for sharing information with contractors and stuff, but there are some nuances between the 2 bids. The same 4 group of companies was in number 1 and number 3, so there's differences between those bids, and they're pretty easy to find when we looked at them. So getting the professional excavators, they do everything themselves. So they would come in with their own crew and do the deeps, and the surface and the concrete works. So they're a full suite company. So they didn't have any subs with them.
Okay, any other questions? We have a motion then. I appreciate all those answers, Craig, and not so as not to put you on the spot, but they are always tests, so thank you. All right, so we have a motion. Councillor Moore made, I think the answers have satisfied everybody, and to accept the K-On bid and streetlights and then more road rehab projects. So it all works out really good. So I'll call the vote then. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now we have item 7.6, the disaster recovery program. Need a motion. Councillor Windsor's hand is up.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. I must apologize to council and to administration that evidently I didn't word my motion last time very well, because it's obviously didn't do quite what I was intending to do. So I'm going to make a different motion with council's indulgence, and that is that what I'd like administration to do is to bring back a indication of what the impact is on Valarosa residents, and how this new regulation impacts the MDP, or how the MDP is going to be altered in order to accommodate the new regulations.
Okay. Is there discussion on that or comments? Do you have a reason for that? Or Ethan, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure how what we would bring back more than simply that's the information of the program. If you're wanting a professional study done by a consultant, then that's what would need to be included in. But by way of, it's just a new program that they've rolled out. We've included the details of the program. We don't really have the professional capability in our administrative staff to do kind of a deeper analysis or assessment of those kind of estimations on that type of thing. So I'm not quite even sure what we would even bring back further.
Councillor Crothers, Ethan.
Just out of interest, as a resident of Valarosa, what has changed or what might change?
That's what needs a professional study, I believe. Yes. The low lying in what? Ethan, you go ahead and answer that, or have a comment on that.
Yeah, like they're just basically saying they're not going to fund as much, and they're not going to fund continuously. So if a resident gets funding, then it no longer gets funding, and so that's more. It's a pretty simple concept. The province is basically saying we're not going to have an infinite amount that we'll fund. We're putting a limit on what we'll fund. So if there's analysis needed for what potential disasters might hit in the valley there, or things like that, again, those are geologists or other kinds of experts that might want to do some analysis as to how that, again, potentially what kind of cataclysms might hit. Again, it's hard to even anticipate every type of cataclysm that might hit.
Okay, Councillor Windsor has his hand up.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. The reason I brought this forward is because I've attended 3 seminars now on this very thing and the changes to the disaster recovery plan. And what the whole concept, the whole reason behind this is to urge and convince municipalities to curtail development in high-risk areas. And the potential impact on the residents in high impact areas or high risk areas is that it's a one and done kind of a proposition, that if there is a disaster in a high risk area, that the province is only going to fund up to 90% and up to $500,000, but it's only a one-time thing. And then that piece of property, because the funding is tied to the piece of property, that property will be sterilized from any further claims for any disasters down the road. And I think that one of the things, again, going back to the whole driving force behind this whole new program, is that they want to curtail development in the high-risk areas, and that goes throughout the province. And so that's what I kind of was hoping that, and I think that the MDP is impacted by this, because if we're going to follow that urging of the program to curtail development in those areas, then it's something that we have to look at.
So in response, in Ethan's response, there would have to be a will to undertake that study. I certainly I see the need there. I do see that it is a big issue when you have low-lying areas like we have in our community. We talk about them all the time in our IDP and whatnot. So unless there's a will to do that study at this point, I would, Councillor Windsor, your motion needs to either be amended or accept as information, or to do the study, and then that would entail funding. And so it could be a big, it's tornadoes and whatnot too, so it's not just floods.
So, Mayor Hunter, I'll amend to accept the information or the report as information. It really does need to be looked at, and it needs to be looked at, I think, sooner rather than later.
And because we're doing our MDP after our IDP is resolved and approved, then is that the time perhaps to bring that up? I could be, and so Councillor Moore?
I just wanted to let you know that I don't know about the beginning of Velarosa because I wasn't around then, but for the building of the church, I know that we had to have a flood study, and we are 2.5 meters above the 100-year floodplain. So I think that all of these developments had that information is on file, and that I think is the study that you know, if we're talking 100 years, I don't know that we need another one. I do think that there are a lot of places way more at risk than the raging Rosebud. So I'm thinking that we probably don't need a study. Another one. I would support the motion just to accept it as information.
Okay. Thank you for that motion, Councillor Windsor. Are there any other comments?
I guess I have to learn to tread water.
Yeah. You're far enough away. You're the last one to be hit over on that road from the Rosebud. Okay, I'll call the vote then. All in favor, accept as information. That's carried. Thank you. So we have item 7.7, the outstanding workshop items. And I'm going to ask Ethan to speak to these separately. First, or unless someone wants to make the first motion and have Ethan speak to it, would anybody like to make that motion to the issue of the housing assessment be referred to administration? Councillor Windsor.
I'll make that motion that council move that the issue of housing needs and assessment be referred to administration for further exploration and recommendation be brought back to council.
Okay, and Ethan, you want to speak to this?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So with the housing needs assessment / review, this is something that has come to our attention, and and it's been brought up at different as an item in previous council strategic planning discussions. And so at this point, that's why we're recommending this motion that we look into and bring back some options for how council might potentially look at doing some kind of review, because there's been multiple points of information that have been brought to our attention about the potential need and helpfulness of such data to us with regards to housing needs in the town of Didsbury.
Thanks, Ethan. Are there questions? Councillor Moore?
Yes, I just want to point out that housing is a provincial responsibility, not a municipal one, and that the province actually does own a number of affordable housing options within Didsbury. And so because Mountain View Senior Housing manages them and they don't cost us anything in our budget, it's paid for by the province. They're a little slow at doing it, but they do the renovations and the repairs and they rent them out and they manage them. So for seniors at Bethany, we have 100 units, and at Aspen Ridge Lodge, we have 58. So 158, and those are for anybody that is low income. They are made to be affordable. They have $330 left every month for spending money, even if they have no income of their own. We also have 16 units at Kinsman Manor that are a percentage of income. I believe it's about 30%. No matter how little you make, you only pay that amount. And then we have 2 houses in South, well, no, pardon me, that's a duplex in Southridge. And so those are ones that, although we aren't involved in them, they truly are affordable housing because they're based on income. We also have an incredible range of properties that were built in the 70s that are aged enough now that they are not that expensive, like what we call the chicken coops, and I'm sorry, I don't know another name for them, and Princess Petra, and the ones that are over by the curling rink, as well as the at college, on the college grounds, there are three floor, at least 40 units that are 1 bedroom, 1 bath, that are very inexpensive and utilities are included. So I'm thinking that even if we had it, we used to have Calgary Social Services sending actually almost busloads of people out in the 80s to, again, I hate calling them the chicken coops, but at the corner of
Fourplexes they are.
Yes, fourplexes. We'll just call them fourplexes. Of people moving in there that weren't Didsbury people because we had a lot of vacancies. I do think that we have more than most for our size of community. And I would ask what the cost of this assessment be. If it's just a matter of checking with Statistics Canada or something, I'm okay with it. If it involves money, I will be voting against it.
Are there other comments? I have a comment that this is a housing needs assessment, so we're not just talking about affordable. And we're referring it back to administration for further exploration and recommendation to be brought back to council, at which point there would be a fee if we decided to pursue that. It is our business to know what our municipality needs for housing, and I think it's a very worthy cause to at least explore it. I talk to seniors all the time that they want to move somewhere, but they don't want a $340,000 or $300,000 home, and they want to live on their own and have a house. So it's not just affordable; it's other housing besides lodges, and I think it's valuable information for our community. And I'm totally in support of getting more information on it. I just want to mention that I have gone to the RDN workshops. I have one coming up that I've deferred to Ethan to use the registration that their administrative team can sit in on and gather more information too. So I found the workshop very valuable for a council level. And Ethan, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify, as the question was asked, at this point, we're not recommending any funds to be expended. We're at this point asking just for that administration to even look into the concept of an assessment review, not to do an assessment review, but to explore and learn all we can about what these are, what the options are for doing them, potential costs of doing them, and to kind of bring all that information, the purpose of doing them, what we can learn from doing them, and bring back some information back for council's consideration.
Okay, anything else from anyone? So we have the motion to refer to administration for further exploration and recommendation. I will call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Okay, we have the second motion for the governance of public art and the perpetual care cemetery fees. Someone make that motion, and then Ethan, did you want to speak to that first?
Sure, I can just again, as noted in the RFD, these again are two issues that we've had some strategic discussions with council about. There's been an interest in having some proper type of framework for governing both of these, and so at this point that's why we're recommending that these be referred to the Policy and Governance Committee to explore a type of framework for those things to bring back recommendation back to council.
Okay, Councillor Moore, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm going to make the motion. I would move that the governance of public art and perpetual care cemetery fees be referred to the Policy and Governance Committee for their review and recommendation.
I think you're probably happy to make that motion since perpetual care has been on your mind. Are there any comments, questions? Ethan, is your hand still up?
Sorry.
I know that's the problem with that, but it's okay. At least get acknowledged. I like it. I'm liking this. No comments or questions? Okay, I will call a vote on that. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, we have item 8.1. The COVID update. Ethan, who is going to be giving that?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll defer this to Amanda, who will speak to this.
Okay.
So this evening we do have a couple matters that came out of the most recent restrictions that impact our facilities and our people directly. So that's what I will focus my discussion on. But if anyone has questions about the restrictions in general, I can also answer that. So effective Sunday, May 9th, our recreation facility, so the Memorial Complex, was closed. Our DOSCA, the Didsbury Out of School Care Program, is also closed due to school not being in. And we've also taken a really good hard look at our staff and who can work from home. And so reevaluated that, and you'll notice that our office is quite thinned out, as working from home is mandatory unless a physical presence is required. And then we've re-emphasized the need to meet virtually rather than in person. So if we are remaining open, our main office is open to accept payment and answer questions and things like that. However, if a meeting is required that takes more than a couple minutes at the front, we will be asking that to either be over the phone or via Zoom or another method of communication. And that is all I have.
All right. Other questions from anyone? I don't see any hands up. I appreciate the update. I believe we were at 90 cases today, down from 97. The way to remove restrictions is to get down under that 30 number, is what I understand. So, Councillor Crothers?
Madam Mayor, can I beg for a 3-minute break, please?
Sure. You don't even have to beg. I will call a recess at 8:19 for 3 minutes. So,
Madam Mayor?
yes?
I'm going to have to excuse myself here at 8:45, okay? I have a matter I have to take care of. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we're just about done the agenda, so it's just a closed meeting. And Luana, while we're in recess, are you there? Are there questions?
No, there are not.
Okay. Thank you. That's 2 minutes. All right. That looks like everybody. I think Councillor Bassett was here. Yeah, there he is. Okay, so we have, we need a motion to accept the COVID update as information.
I so move.
Councillor Crothers made that. Any other comments or questions? Call the vote then, all in favor? Carried. We have item 8.2, the CAO report. Anything to add to that, Ethan?
Yes, as noted on the sheet there is a verbal component that'll be done by Craig on the library project, but I did also want to call everyone's attention to the information in there about the town cleanup, spring cleanup program. That was actually all organized and undertaken by our intern, Kelsey Hawkins. That was kind of her first project that we kind of put on her. So well done, Kelsey, in organizing this whole event. And it was, so that was a fun thing to kind of watch her shine with. So.
And can I ask then, I was going to look it up, but is Pitch In a program in Alberta this year, or is that your program? I did mean to Google it. But can I ask Kelsey that?
Sure.
Yeah, so it's not a program in Alberta per se. We just wanted to include it in our cleanup event. So basically anyone can register for a free pitch-in kit where they can bring members of their household rather than family. We didn't want to introduce extended family to this. But members of the household can go and just tackle an area of the community, and we're going to provide them with the garbage bags, the protective gloves, sanitizer, and then coloring sheets, something to incentivize families to try and take this on, as I don't think a lot of them did last year, from my understanding.
I think this is the program that'll do it. I like it. I think it's great. And if everybody can just do that catchphrase, pitch in and call the town for your package. And people like packages no matter what's in them, right? So, good idea. Are there any other comments or questions from council on these written items? I'm going to miss the annual cleanup where we all walk along in the ditch, but necessary. Okay, thank you, Kelsey and Ethan, for that. And do you want it all as one motion after Craig's update, Ethan?
Sure.
Okay, so do you want Craig to speak to the library then?
You bet. Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you so much. So at this point in time with the library project, we're still trying to assemble estimates. I don't know if anybody's paying attention to commodities these days, but we're having a heck of a time getting suppliers to agree to anything. And so we're kind of, I think because of that, we're going to pivot. I was speaking with a member of the team today, and I think we're going to try and compile the estimates based on what we have historically understood costs to be. I think we'll put in a component of that, which is that variable that we're experiencing, and it'll probably just turn into a sort of a bigger contingency than what we would probably otherwise present. So we're in the process of just doing that. Unfortunately, because of the commodity change, also everybody's really busy trying to respond back to all the questions about how things are going to affect their 3-month delivery periods and such. So it's tough to get everybody to nail down anything in the same sort of fashion, as well as the contractor is helping me is also very busy right now too. So that's all these sort of things play into the factor, but we're getting really close, and we know that the 15th deadline is there for the application, and that's what we're aiming for being prepared to support that application.
The 15th of
June.
Well, that's good. May's really close.
It's a really pressing timeline, and with award of tenders and things like that going forward too, it's going to be a push to the finish.
Are there any questions for Craig? I think that's okay. Great news, and I think we have a meeting just before that in June, so we'll all be eagerly anticipating that meeting. So. Thank you. And with all that information, and I do want to just note too, again, last week that we didn't get to all our questions, and I know someday we will, but thanks to the whole team for all the work they always do to submit these reports into the CAO report, and for Ethan's work on that. So I need a motion to accept his information. Councillor Windsor, I was waiting to see the hand in the screen, but okay.
Sorry.
It's okay.
I'll make that motion to accept the CAO Chief Administrative Officer's report for May 11, 2021 as information.
Okay. Thanks again. Now we'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Okay, we have council reports. And I'm going to start bottom left-hand corner on my screen with Councillor Moore.
I've actually, well, of course, I did my normal committee meetings and that. Mountain View Seniors Housing is going on to parts of our strategic planning because there's so much, we've changed so much with now not doing the healthcare that we're going to be able to do the other things that we weren't able to do before. So we're working on how to make the life lease projects more practical, I guess, because people like the 2-bedroom and not the 1-bedroom. So we're going to maybe make some more 2-bedroom. We've got the same problem with contractors, though. Right now, you can hardly buy materials. So there's jokes out there about trading a new truck for a sheet of plywood. As far as committees go, lots of those. And I think you see those coming forward to council. So I'll just leave it at that because I'm busy with a lot of other things too.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. Councillor Crothers.
Haven't been very many meetings in the last few weeks. We have a municipal planning meeting tomorrow, which has a very big project on the agenda. So that we're looking forward to getting our teeth into that. It's long overdue. The last council meeting that we had for MPC, we had an opportunity to have a look at the plans for home hardware and what the new store will look like, or part of the new store, and the location of it, which was of great interest to the committee. That's it.
Thank you. Councillor Pogmiller.
Thank you. My report's going to be short and sweet. I didn't really have any committee of a break, so that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Beswick.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. The only thing we had was an extra meeting with the Water Commission, which was in camera. All I can say about it publicly is that it had to do with major personnel hiring, and our next meeting, of course, is tomorrow morning, so we'll have to do that on the next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Engel.
So I realized the reports were carried over from the last RCM. We ran out of time, and I haven't had any meetings subsequent to the last RCM. In our last agenda package, the minutes, both minutes were included. There's not a whole lot that I can really update on. Obviously, both of the facilities are closed. And I think I really want to stress the impact that's having on the community, and the tireless efforts of our staff at the library. You know, they've organized some curbside pickup. They're doing everything that they possibly can under the restrictions to ensure those resources can still get out to the public, and I think that's very commendable. It's a tough way to show up every day and try and do a job. And again, the museum, all volunteer, and I can't say enough about our volunteers, of all the volunteers in this town. But the library board or the museum board, they're constantly looking at ways to try and make a few dollars to help out with their bills, and I really commend them. That's all I have to say about those guys.
Thank you, Councillor Engel. I'm sure I'm confident Council all agrees about our groups that are working so hard. Councillor Windsor.
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Parkland is pretty much under the same problem as all the other libraries in the province, and restricted in what they can do, although they are still distributing books around the province, or the region anyway. Waste Commission, we approved the audited financials for the Waste Commission, and we awarded the $1.7 million dollar contract for Cell 7 development at the Waste Commission, and the financing, we are going to be financing that initially out of reserves. Whether or not there will be a debenture taken later to relieve the member municipalities with some of their fees for service. We'll discuss that in July. RDR Mug, the executive director, is stepping down, and you'll also find the handbook, RDR handbook, in your agenda package. And the other thing I'm involved in right now is EOEP regional collaboration course that I'm in session 2 of 3.
Great, thank you. And I deferred there in the first meeting in April, but I'll do a quick rundown. I do owe a couple reports for the external, but I have been to my committee meetings for council, disaster recovery program webinar. We've had an AUA infrastructure and energy committee meeting. Of course, our budget workshop, town hall with the CMOH in April. I did the Bring Winona Home Herb Square, but then all the shout outs, I just did 2. If you're on Twitter to watch the shout outs for all the billboards and the donations, that council's gonna be very pleasantly surprised with a donation from that GoFundMe program for the billboards. The AUMA Spring Caucus, again, I mentioned that I was at the official release of the CD, Don't Let Them Go, for the residents in long-term care. CAPE, we had a meeting for general members meeting, and I will submit a report on that. I went to the Alberta Association of Policing Governance Conference in April, and I do a whole report for that. It was very interesting and informative. And Mayors of South Central Alberta met in April, and I did go to the Colts AGM the other night, and they have a big turnover of board members, but great to see so many, again, interested volunteers in ensuring our Colts continue. I did go to some of the meeting with Councillor Moore for Mountview Seniors Housing, but I had another commitment that night too. But I'm always confident that she's looking after us at Mountview Seniors Housing, so it's always good meetings. So that's it for council reports, and I'll have a motion to accept the reports as information. Councillor Engel.
I move that council accept council reports as information.
Okay, any questions, comments? Call the vote. All in favor? Carried, thank you. And now we have council meeting highlights. And again, I'll start in the same order. Councillor Moore. Oh, we have correspondence and information first, so let's accept that, because there's a lot of highlights in that correspondence. So
All right, I'll move that we accept the correspondence as information. I don't really have any highlights.
okay, any comments on those, any of that information that we received? Call the vote then. All in favor? Accept as information. That's carried. Okay, now we have council meeting highlights, and you said you didn't have any, Councillor Moore? Oh. Okay. Councillor Crothers.
I'm sort of in the same boat. The only thing that I had this week as a councillor, well, I have a computer that needed to get some things done to it, and our new assistant, Kelsey, was the one with the hands-on and got it fixed in 3.5 minutes flat with a smile. So it's a delight to have her come and work with us. So it's good to see.
Okay. You can pick something out of tonight's meeting for a highlight, but I'll move to Councillor Bogmiller.
Yes, the thing that I was kind of pleasantly surprised with, I ran into a surveyor who does survey work for the town, and he said to me, he said it's good to see that he has been exceptionally busy the last little while doing survey work on housing projects and new developments and potential developments. So I thought that was rather encouraging. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Baswick.
I guess mine is basically a very pleasant welcome to Kelsey Hawkins, and I think she's going to add more to administration and to our community, and any person of that caliber is welcome. And I'm sure administration feels the same way as we do, that we like to have experienced, talented people working for us. And so welcome aboard, Kelsey. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Baswick. Councillor Engel?
Yeah, I would like to echo John's sentiments about Kelsey. I think her introduction tonight was a highlight, but I'm not quite done yet, Kelsey.
Only get one, Councillor Baswick says.
Yeah, but I don't listen to John.
Okay.
Or Councillor Baswick. I hear it. I think the awarding of the 20th Street Storm and Water Sewer Revitalization Project was supposed to be. I'm happy to see the work go.
especially when we get streetlights and more road rehab.
And shelter.
Thanks for that. Councillor Windsor?
Thank you, Mayor Hunter. Being at the bottom of the pile, all the good ones get taken during the course of the meeting, but and I echo Councillor Engels, but I'll also say the Memorial Park pedestrian conductivity forwarding is a good step in the right direction for me.
Yes. Okay, then because I go last, I really appreciated the NPF presentation, but I also appreciate that there's 4 more letters in our agenda package showing support for our RCMP. And after listening twice now to the NPF, I'm very comfortable that our council has sent that letter in support of our RCMP in opposition to an APS. And I just really hope that the report is shared and that our Minister of Justice and Solicitor General hears the voices of the Alberta citizens. So I think that was important that we have all those letters too, and there's many going on. So that's the council highlights. Luana, questions to any?
Nope, there still isn't any.
Okay. All right, then I will entertain a motion. First, thanking everybody for, it's nice to see so many people here on our in our gallery. Thank you for listening in, and I'll have a motion then to go to a closed meeting, and of course you can wait around to be let back in after the closed meeting's over to the gallery. Motion for that, Councillor Crothers.
Move we adjourn and move into closed meeting.
Okay, motion to go to closed meeting as per those division and sections. All in favor? That's carried. Okay. So we'll just wait for Amanda. Does anybody need 2 minutes? We just had 2 minutes. Councillor Pogmiller?
Yeah, I'm going to excuse myself now, Madam Mayor.